Picture a man on a rooftop on a winter night in Edo. The street below him is orange. 2 houses down, a wall of fire is coming at the speed of a walking horse, and he is not moving. He holds a pole taller than 3 men, a heavy crest at the top, raised so the whole neighborhood can see where he stands. Now look under his feet. Men with hooked poles are tearing the roof off the building he is on. Not the burning one, the one he is standing on. They are pulling it to pieces as fast as hands can work, and he is helping. None of this is a mistake. This is the firefighting, because the firefighters of Edo did not put out fires. That is not a clever phrasing. It is the job description, and they had more practice than anyone alive. Between 1601 and 1867, Edo recorded 49 great fires. Kyoto in the same span had 9, Osaka 6, Kanazawa 3. Count the smaller ones and the total is 1,798, and the curve runs the wrong way. 269 in the 1st century, 986 in the last 67 years. Whole districts burned and were rebuilt every 25 to 50 years. And the city had a saying for it. Fires and quarrels, they said, are the flowers of Edo. Now cross to the other side of the world, because London had the same problem in the same century and didn't serve it the way Europe did. In 1666, the Great Fire took most of the old city. What came next was law. An act in force with the ashes still warm ordered the new city rebuilt in brick and stone and banned the overhanging upper stories that let flame cross a street. Then came insurance. Then, in 1721, Richard Newsham patented a machine that threw a continuous jet of water. Not a bucket, a jet that did not stop. One idea underneath all of it. A city can be made unable to burn. Edo reached the opposite conclusion, and we know how it got there, because 4 years after the worst night in its history, a writer wrote that night down. In 1661, Asai Ryoi published Musashi Abumi, Musashi Stirrups, an illustrated account of the fire of 1657, told through a monk who lost his family in it. Not an archive document, reporting written as fiction, with drawings of the firefighting itself. The fire began on the 2nd of March. It burned 3 days. A hurricane wind out of the northwest carried it, and on the 2nd evening, that wind turned and pushed the fire into the center of the city instead of past it. When it dropped, 60 to 70% of Edo was gone, and more than 100,000 people did not come home. You have had a small version of the moment inside that. The alarm at 3 in the morning, the smell in a stairwell, the 10 seconds of deciding what you carry out with you. Now imagine knowing it is coming, not as a fear, as a schedule. So how do you build a city for a fire you already know is coming? And why did the answer involve pulling down more houses than the fire itself ever reached? Start with what the government did in the 2 years after, because it shows where the thinking went. It opened the stores immediately. 900 tons of rice, 160,000 gold pieces of relief. It moved retainers out of the crowded center, pushed temples and shrines to the riverbanks, cut fire breaks around the castle and widened the streets. And the main keep of Edo Castle, the tallest structure in the country, had gone with the rest. They never rebuilt it. The most powerful family in Japan lost its tower and decided a tower was not worth the money. That is the sentence to keep. Every choice from here runs on that logic. Stop defending the thing. Start defending the ability to begin again. Now, the obvious question. Why not water? Edo had water, one of the best municipal supplies in the world at the time, wooden pipes running under the streets. But a pipe is not a pump. To fight fire with water, you need pressure without interruption, and neither existed. The city's eventual answer was the Ryudosui, a wooden hand pump that arrived more than a century after the Great Fire. It drew from barrels refilled by hand. It could not hold a jet. Against a fire crossing a street on a winter wind, it was a gesture. The one thing water was reliably good for was the men themselves. Heavy cotton coats soaked through before they went in and soaked again from below while they worked. So the method was subtraction. If the fire cannot be stopped, the fuel can be taken away. You watch the fire, you read the wind, you work out which street it reaches in 20 minutes. And then you go to that street ahead of the flames and take the buildings down by hand. The tool was the tobiguchi, a long shaft with an iron hook on the end. The technique was to strip the roof first, then haul the frame off its posts so the house came in on itself, flat, low, no longer tall enough to hand fire to the next roof. Done properly, the fire arrived at a gap and found nothing to cross. This stayed the standard method in Japan's largest city until the Meiji Restoration, which raises a question about the men doing it. They were Toby, steeplejacks, the scaffolding trade, the men who had put the timber city up in the first place. That is not a coincidence. It is the entire design. The men who pulled your house apart were the men who would come back and raise it again, and they took it down cleanly because they knew how it had gone up. And the pole on the roof was theirs, the matoi, 3 to 5 meters of timber, 10 to 20 kilos, topped with a crest of hanging strips in red, gold and black carrying the brigade's mark, visible for kilometers. It went to the strongest man in the unit, hoisted onto a roof beside the fire and held there. It is not a flag, it is a border with a man standing under it. And there were a great many of them. The system came in 3 layers. Brigades raised by the great lords, a permanent force created after 1657 under retainers of the shogun, and from 1718, the townsmen's own. By 1720, the commoners had 48 companies west of the Sumida River and 16 on the east bank, 11,000 men on the rolls in 1738, 24,000 by 1850. Now, historians do not agree on what these men were. One reading, a genuine civic institution, arguably the first mass volunteer fire service on Earth. The other, a guild with a monopoly on both halves of the same transaction, the taking down and the building back. Which one do you think they were? Tell me in the comments. Both readings survived and you can still watch. Every January, the Tokyo Fire Department holds the Deizomeshiki, the year's first turnout. Thousands of firefighters, modern drills, ladder trucks. And then men in Edo dress climb tall wooden ladders, held upright by nothing but other men's hooked poles, and perform acrobatics at the top exactly as the brigades did 3 centuries ago. The matoi are still carried, and the word Toby never left the language. Walk past any construction site in Japan and the men on the scaffolding are still called that. A trade invented to take buildings down is now the trade that puts them up. If this is the kind of history you came here for, a like helps this channel. The demolition crews were only the visible half. The other half was slower and written into the city itself. In 1601, thatched roofs were ordered replaced with shingle. By 1661, thatch was banned outright. By the 1720s, tile was required. And because an order nobody can afford is not really an order, it came with interest-free loans and tax relief. Bathhouse fires were forbidden before 6 in the evening. Fireworks were pushed out to the riverbanks. Kite flying was banned. Whole blocks were cleared and kept permanently empty as barriers, heiokechi, and main streets widened into hirokoji, eaves cut back on both sides so flame could not reach across. Empty ground in the most crowded city on earth, defended on purpose. Inside the house, the logic went one step further. If the building is going to be lost to the fire or to your neighbor's hooks, then stop defending the building. Defend the contents. Merchants built dozo, storehouses with thick earthen walls under tile roofs, expensive, very hard to burn. Ordinary households dug anagura, storage chambers set below ground level, which worked so well in 1657 that everyone wanted one. And for the last few minutes, the Yojin cargo, a bamboo basket kept by the door for whatever you could carry. A complete philosophy in 3 objects. The walls are temporary. What matters is that the ledgers, the tools, and the seed of the business come out the other side. Now, the part that does not fit on a poster. A city that rebuilds constantly is a city where fire is worth money. People noticed. Of 102 people arrested for arson in 1723 and 1724, 41 came from the outcast classes and 22 had no fixed address, which tells you as much about who gets arrested as about who lights fires. The motives are ordinary and bleak. Looting, a grudge, a business rival, a romance gone wrong. And there are accounts of firefighters setting fires themselves to keep the reconstruction work coming. Brigades fought each other over whose ground a fire was on. In 1805, one such argument became a brawl with sumo wrestlers. And the law answered in kind. Let a fire you started run past a certain distance, and the punishment reached past you to the landlord and the neighborhood association. Carelessness was never a private matter here. Picture that man on the roof one more time, the house coming apart under him. He is not saving that building, it is already spent. He is telling 400 frightened people where the fire ends, and he cannot come down before it does. Step back, and the shape is the one this channel keeps running into. London met fire by making the city harder. Brick, stone, pressure, law. Edo met it by making the city softer and faster. Cheap timber replaceable in weeks, valuables in a box that would not burn, and an army of carpenters who could take a street apart at night and start putting it back at dawn. Not because one people was wiser, because the timber, the winters, and those winds left no harder answer they could afford. So they built a city designed to lose on one condition, that it could always come back. It is a strange thing to name your catastrophe after a flower, but a flower is the thing that returns every year. So, tell me below, would you rather live somewhere built to resist disaster or somewhere built to recover from it? I read everyone, and if the real story of how feudal Japan survived is what you came here for, subscribe.